He's the former president and publisher of the Sun Herald, and now he's on the radio. Welcome to Coast Vue with Ricky Mathews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome to Coast Vue, the show that continues to celebrate the men and women who are making coastal Mississippi such a great place to live, work, and play. I'm back in the coastal Mississippi studio after spending a few days up at my place in the Delta. It's great to be home. But, you know, it's a great time just to go around this state and see the amazing diversity. You know, the landscapes in this state sort of define this state. And it's a great time of the year to go see the Christmas spirit all across the state, especially here in coastal Mississippi. You can't make a turn on the corner to not see some lights and trees and, you know, just the festive environment. And you know what? I said this before, but the generosity that people feel this time of year, it's something to behold. And boy, do we need generosity with the pandemic and the hurricane and all the challenges that we face. Not everyone's doing well in coastal Mississippi. So, you know, if you're feeling generous, and I know so many are, this is a good time to find a charity and make a contribution of one. You know, you can do money, you could do food, whatever it might be, but try to make someone's day. I want to thank you for listening. Kyle and I and Dan, when Kyle's out, have done about 500 conversations since January the 6th. And what we tried to do, and I think, you know, I think we're building momentum, and people are beginning to understand that this is a show that you can listen to and get a dose of positivity, and not just in your life, but I think a positive reflection on what makes coastal Mississippi such a great place to live, work, and play. That was our goal when we went into this. And, you know, we're building momentum, and people are listening to the show. They're watching at SuperTalk Gulf Coast Facebook page, or the SuperTalk Mississippi Facebook page, or the SuperTalk Mississippi YouTube page, or any podcast that you like. Go do a search on Coast Vue. You can listen to the show. But the response has been really incredible, and I want to just thank you for listening and encourage you that if you continue to like it, let your friends know about it. And listen, we'd really appreciate it. I also want to thank our sponsors, Allen Toyota and Coastal Mississippi, and all of our other advertisers. We really appreciate you helping enable us to do this show. And if you're a sponsor who's interested, or a potential sponsor who's interested, reach out to our friends at TeleSouth and see what's involved in that. We'd really appreciate it. This show is local. It's all about coastal Mississippi, and it's all about spreading sort of a daily positive thought for you that will help you in your life. With that said, I want to share something from my friend Stacy Waldrop. As I said so many times before, she's a nurse and a cancer survivor, one of the most positive people I know. And she posted this from Richard Carlson. It said this: choose being kind over being right, and you will be right every time. I just love that. And it's so true, especially this time of year. You know, it's going to be about 6 months before the vaccine fully kicks in. So I've got a Coast Vue challenge for you. Let's make the next 6 months the best 6 months of our lives. You know, that could be choosing to be kind, like Stacy suggests, or maybe you just focus on your mental and physical health. Make it a goal to be the best version of yourself going into the post-pandemic life. I'm going to do that myself, and want to remind you, we got about 6 months to get this right. So let's do this. So let me bring Kyle into the conversation now and say good morning. How are you doing, Kyle?
I'm good. How are you this morning?
I'm doing fine. Hey, listen, we had a great show with Milton Segura yesterday, looking at how coastal Mississippi sort of fits into the rest of the nation. And man, it was really impressive seeing how well we're doing relative to the rest of the country, wasn't it?
It was. To be quite honest, I never really followed the metrics of the whole thing, but knowing that the Mississippi Gulf Coast is driving at least a third of our entire revenue for the state is pretty impressive. And it's also impressive that our numbers, as far as the bounce back numbers, are higher than the average in the state and higher than the average in the United States.
Yeah, it's really impressive. Like the whole United States, the recoveries, the tourism economy has been about 50%. It's like 49.5, I think, is the number he shared. For the state of Mississippi, it's 20%. And the coast has done slightly better than that. And then when you look at where the coast stands relative to its contribution, as you pointed out, to the rest of the state, a third of the tourism economy happens right here on the coast of Mississippi. Or we're really, I mean, it was important for us to have a strategic plan to deal with the pandemic, not just for coastal Mississippians, but for the rest of the state. And it's impressive, isn't it?
It really is. And it's also good to see that they have a straight, solid plan to increase those numbers in 2021. Like you were saying yesterday, the spring and the summer is going to be, I think, huge for South Mississippi.
It is. And we're going to be talking more about the tourism numbers and how that fits into the coastal economy with Ashley Edwards on the Monday following the holiday. We're going to do the ultimate economic look back and look forward. And I look forward to having Ashley Edwards, the CEO of the Gulf Coast Business Council. And lastly, I just wanted to thank my friend from Telesouth for supporting me in this journey. You Kyle, have been absolutely incredible. And Dan, when you're out, has been incredible. We've had a really good year, and I really appreciate what you're doing.
Yep, I appreciate it. It's been a good challenge, and it was tough at times, just trying to figure things out and self-learning things. Really, it was. I think about when the power was out and only part of the building after the storm, and all the things we've had to deal with. It's just been a real challenge. But, because you do what you do and I do what we do, what I do, we're able to share stories from people like Sandy Anderson we had this week, and to tell her not just her entrepreneur story, but her story of facing, in the midst of the pandemic, breast cancer and going to MD Anderson and having to have surgery and multiple rounds of chemotherapy, and then coming back. And the number one goal when she got back, I mean, it's just a little over a week. She already reopened her business, man. I mean, what an inspiration that is. Yeah, I think that just goes to the heart of what South Mississippi is, and the people that are here. It goes far beyond just work. It's their life, it's their passion, and at the same time, they know how to put their life and passion and work aside for family and to take care of themselves, even at the smallest little details. And I just think that's the great part about South Mississippi.
We see it over and over again. And I think it was brave of Sandy to share her story. I know it's not easy. It's not an easy story to tell publicly, how she stared breast cancer in the face and dealt with it very aggressively. But anyway, thank you, man. I appreciate it. And we're going to shift gears and look. Hey, we've had to make some adjustments because of the holidays. We would normally have Saints Friday on Friday. Friday is Christmas, and the Saints play on Friday. So to give you a chance to sort of break it all down and see what Jeff Duncan has to say about it, we moved Saints Friday to Wednesday, and I'm proud to have my friend from The Athletic. He's covered the Saints longer than anyone else on earth, and I appreciate you being here, Jeff Duncan.
Thanks, Ricky. Always great to visit. I wish we were coming off of a better game and a better topic to discuss, but hey, it was a big, high-profile game. And the Saints turn around on Christmas Day and have a huge game against the Minnesota Vikings, which I'm sure everyone's going to be watching over their Christmas dinner. At least have it on in the background.
Well, look, here we know it. We're going to look at it from every angle. There's so much to talk about, but at the end of the day, you cannot spot Kansas City 14 points. And at that point of the game, if I remember right, we hadn't had a first down yet. Drew Brees hadn't even completed a pass yet. He had completed a pass to a defender and an interception, but we had about a total of 10 yards, and they already had 14 points. So that's not a good place to start, is it?
No, I mean, look, the last 2 weeks, they've kind of all on the same, format. They started down 17-0 to Philadelphia, played catch up the whole time, and same thing this week. And this time you were playing the defending Super Bowl champions, and Patrick Mahomes was just, unbelievable in that game. It was my first time to see him in person, Ricky, and he lived up to expectations. I thought he was the difference in the game. The Saints actually, I think, played fairly well defensively, about as well as you could expect to hold them down. The longest gain the Chiefs had in the game was 24 yards. They lead the league in explosive plays. The Saints limited those. Many times got after him in the pocket, but he found ways to escape and make some magic happen with his scrambling ability. It's why he's was the MVP 2 years ago, and why the Chiefs are the favorites to win the Super Bowl this year. He's just a tremendous talent. And by the time the Saints got going in the second half, it was just too big of a hole to climb out of.
Well, you're right. I think the defense, I've seen him play a few games, but not all the way through. We don't get access to all those games, unfortunately, but we can see highlights from time to time, and his highlight reels are always impressive. But one of the things I noted about him is that he's actually pretty patient. I mean, he's not running around trying to make something happen every time. He's willing to let this set of downs come to an end and do a punt, and we'll come back to later. He's really pretty careful player. But anyway, we're going to break it all down. Pro Bowl selections snubbed a few players of the Saints, and we're going to talk about that as well. When we come back with Jeff Duncan from The Athletic, we'll start to break the game down, talk about injuries, talk about what's coming up in the next couple of weeks. What's the chances of us still winning the NFC Championship? I know it's an outside chance, but we'll talk about that as well. We'll be back after this break.
Listen live or on demand and watch episodes of Coast Vue on your laptop, desktop, or on your phone or tablet by going to supertalkmsgulfcoast.com.
Feeling down? Here's your prescription for a daily dose of good news and positive vibes. Good Things with Rebecca Turner. Every afternoon, Rebecca highlights all the good things happening right here in the state you call home. Daily exposure to Good Things with Rebecca Turner may cause smiling, feelings of positivity, happiness, and even laughter. When you experience these symptoms, tell your friends to listen.
Okay.
Weekdays starting at 2 p.m. here on SuperTalk Mississippi, and now on Amazon Alexa devices.
Hey, I'm Steve Azar, and you never know who or what you'll hear when I spend a Mississippi Minute with my friends. We are with the fabulous Norbert Putnam as he played on so many hit records, you can't count them, and produced for some of the biggest acts ever. We got to talk Jimmy Buffett.
One day at breakfast, he says, I started a new song. He says, about a night and a day in Key West, I played a bar and I got drunk, and coming home, I stepped out of my flip-flop, and I just kept going. I stepped on a beer can. And the next morning, I'm up, and I'm hungover, and I'm trying to make a margarita. I got some shrimp boiling. I can't find the salt. I said, Jimmy, I kind of like that. And he said, yeah, I think I'll call it Margaritaville.
In a Mississippi Minute. Be sure to check out In a Mississippi Minute with me, Steve Azar, right here on your local SuperTalk Mississippi station, and now on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher.
We know that we're asking Americans to do a lot right now. So we're asking everyone to be selfless for others so that we can protect those who are most susceptible to this virus.
A question I often get asked is, why should young people care about the spread of coronavirus? Well, we know that people with underlying medical conditions over the age of 60 are at highest risk, but they've got to get it from somebody.
Social distancing is really physical separation of people.
It's what we refer to when we ask people to stay at least 6 feet apart.
Not going to bars, not going to restaurants, not going to theaters where there are a lot of people. It all just means physical separation so that you have a space between you and others who might actually be infected or infect you.
We all have a role to play in preventing person-to-person spread of this disease, which can be deadly for vulnerable groups. For more information on how you can social distance, please go to coronavirus.gov.
If Alexa's part of your life, you've got one more way to access SuperTalk. SuperTalk Mississippi is now available on Amazon Alexa devices. Once enabled, just say, Alexa, play SuperTalk Mississippi at any time and start listening. It's that easy. Just one more way to stay informed and connected with your state. Learn more at supertalk.fm/Alexa. SuperTalk Mississippi. SuperTalk Mississippi. Now available on Amazon Alexa devices. Talking to the people that help make the coast such a unique place to live. This is Coast View with Ricky Mathews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast View. I guess we could call it Saints Wednesday. We usually have Saints Fridays every Friday during the season with our friend from The Athletic, Jeff Duncan. He's written a number of books about the Saints, but he recently completed the definitive book on the Drew Brees, Sean Payton era. He's doing really well. I'm proud of you, Jeff, not only for writing a great book, but for launching it. Here we are just before Christmas, and Drew Brees is back, and the reports on the book continue to be very positive, don't they?
Yeah, sales have been going great. I think we timed this thing just about right. And now Drew returns to the field for this big heroic, potentially end his career. It would be a great final chapter to his Hall of Fame career.
So we're going to talk about the game. We're going to talk about the Kansas City game. But before we do that, were you surprised about the Pro Bowl selections? Do they mean anything this time of year?
No, look, Ricky, it's become really a joke. I mean, it's kind of a political situation now. The fact that Mario Davis did not make the team. Trey Hendrickson, who's I think number 2 in the league in sacks right now, didn't make the team. But Cam Jordan, who's having a down year, did make the team. Andres Pete, who was singled out by his head coach for poor play just a week ago, made the team. Really kind of head scratching some of the selections. Sean Payton has always said the Pro Bowl, you end up making the team probably on the back end a year that you probably shouldn't make it just on reputation. And then on the front end, you probably miss it a year because of the same reasoning. So guys like Trey Hendrickson are probably going to have to earn their name this year and make the Pro Bowl next year. And that's what happened with Cam Jordan this year. He made it on reputation because he'd be the first to tell you that he hasn't had that kind of a year. But I think 5 players representative. I mean, the fact that Drew Brees isn't in it for the first time in a long time, I think is, symbolic of his injury-filled season. Same with Mike Thomas, who's a perennial Pro Bowler. Those guys certainly would be deserving if they had a full season.
Yeah, I hear you. So let's just start with, what are the headlines coming out of the Kansas City game?
Well, I think, there's reason for encouragement, but there's also, I think, more than anything now, the Saints know what the standard is. The Chiefs are the best team in the league. There's no doubt about it. They're defending Super Bowl champs. Now you know what the standard is. You know what you have to get to on both sides of the ball. I thought the special teams played very well in that game. I thought the Saints outplayed them on special teams. I thought their defense hung in there. 92 plays, Ricky. I mean, that's insane. That's the most plays ever against the New Orleans Saints in the history of the franchise in a regulation game. That takes its toll on you when you're on the field that long. That's an area the Saints have to get better at, not just on offense, converting third downs. They were 1 of 11. I can't remember the last time they were 1 of 11 third downs, 9% conversion rate. But they also have to get better on defense. I mean, they allowed too many times Mahomes to make something happen on 3rd and long, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 15. That was an issue last year when the Saints lost to the Vikings in the playoff game. They couldn't get off the field on 3rd down, and it does not allow the offense to kind of get into a rhythm because they can't get the ball. So this is an area that I think is something Dennis Allen and the staff have to figure out. 3rd down situational defense. Same thing happened this year earlier. They had troubles in the red zone holding teams out. That reared its head against the Chiefs as well. The Chiefs got down there and were able to punch it in for touchdowns instead of forcing field goals. Those situational areas are areas I'm sure Allen and his staff will be honing in on this week to try and improve upon as they go forward, make a playoff run.
Well, if you think about it, one of 11, I mean, against Kansas City, I mean, just think if it had been 50% conversion rate, it would have been more opportunities for the Saints to score, and we would have kept the ball out of the hand of Patrick Mahomes, but we just kept giving it back to him over and over and over. Man, the score could have been 72 to whatever. I mean,
yeah,
it was rough.
The way to play the Chiefs, it reminds me a lot of how teams used to play the Saints when they were really clicking all cylinders offensively in like 2011, 2009, when they were a juggernaut offensively. Everyone just said, you know what, we're not going to stop you. We're just going to try and slow you down. And that's what the Saints did to the Chiefs. They played 2 safeties back deep. They've been doing this a lot since the bye week. It's one of the tweaks that Dennis Allen has made. They basically said, we're not going to give up anything over the top. And we feel like our front 7 is good enough to stop the run with just the two linebackers and the front four defensive linemen, and we can get pass rush pressure with just our 4 down linemen. And it worked. And that's the formula I think the Saints are going to use going forward. The Chiefs' longest gain in that game was 24 yards. They lead the league in big plays and explosive plays. So the Saints did what they had to do. They needed to hold them to more field goals once they got in the red zone. They weren't able to do that. That was probably part of the plan that didn't go the way they wanted and led to 32 points. But otherwise, I think they executed about as well as you could execute in all the other phases of the game plan. Just got off to too slow a start on offense.
So let's come back to Drew. I wonder how much of what we saw was his ribs and how much of it was just, as some said, just him being rusty. What do you think?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, he said afterward he was playing in pain. He's not 100%. I asked him that. He said he was not. He said the flak jacket did not limit him in any way. He didn't have any problems with that. I think it was just getting back out there. And also, he had a bunch of receivers out there that he's not used to playing with. I mean, Jawan Johnson is out there. I mean, it was basically Emmanuel Sanders in the practice squad at receiver there for a while. And Traquan Smith went out of the game on the first snap of the second half. So they were using Tommy Lee Lewis in a much more expanded role at receiver than they probably envisioned. They couldn't use Taysom Hill in the offense because he was the only backup quarterback, so they had to reduce his package. So they were really limited offensively with what they could do, and I think it showed. I mean, they were just trying to cobble together drives, and the fact that they got 29 points on the board against Kansas City with that offensive repertoire, I think was pretty impressive.
Well, it was interesting. There was so many dynamics as it related to the receivers. Like a couple of things come to mind. One time during the game, the announcer sort of did a breakdown showing how little separation there was between the receivers and the defensive backs. I mean, it was just incredible, like glue. They were on them, and that's got to unbelievably frustrate Drew Brees. And I remember another play where Jared Cook apparently was supposed to break out and do something, maybe the existing play was not unfolding the way it needed to, and he needed to do something, and he didn't do it. And there was a lot of tension between Drew and Cook. Talk to me about what you observed in all these incidences.
Well, and I wouldn't overreact to that. I mean, that goes on all the time. Basically, the Saints offense is so sophisticated and requires such synchronization between the receivers and the quarterback that they always have to be on the same page. Sean Payton calls it painting the picture for the quarterback. In other words, Drew Brees is seeing one thing from the coverage. He has to trust that the receiver is seeing the same thing he's seeing, because a lot of their routes are called option routes. That means the leverage of the cornerback or the defensive back, how they are playing that coverage determines what route the receiver will run. Lots of times he has two different routes that he's able to run on each play. And what determines it is how he's being defended. And so Drew Brees has to understand and has to see the same thing Jared Cook's seeing, because he's throwing with anticipation. He's throwing to a spot before Jared Cook makes his break. And that could be disastrous if they don't see the same thing. And so for a veteran like Cook, it's unusual for him to not be on the same page with Brees. But you saw it on some of the other guys. Juwan Johnson in particular had a play where he didn't sit down in a hole. These are all the things that they usually iron out in training camp and in the offseason. And obviously with Drew coming back, he was just a little bit off. He talked about it. He goes, just a hair off getting the ball out quick enough, or the receiver was just a hair off. So these things are, I think, only going to improve these small little details in the passing game, the more reps these guys get. And as soon as they start getting more of their veteran receivers, back in the fold.
It's kind of interesting because that was the issue at the beginning of the season, because we didn't have the training camp the way we normally did. It was just a hair off. But then you said, hey, don't read too much into this. After those first couple of games, you could see him beginning to get back in the sync, and then unfortunately he gets hurt. What about Alvin Kamara and Murray and the overall running game? It looked like we just wouldn't. We weren't willing to stick to it. I mean, we kept kind of pulling out and trying short passes. What was your read on the running game?
Well, it was surprising to me because I was told all week the Saints were going to run the ball on the Chiefs. That was part of the game plan. And they came out first play of the game and got a nice 5-yard run with Kamara. And then they went away from it. And then next thing you know, they're down 14-0, and kind of the game plan changes to some degree because you're in catch-up mode. So I think that the circumstances of the game, the early interception that led to the early touchdown, suddenly you're chasing the Chiefs. Not a good situation to be in. And I think the fact that this interior offensive line has been something of a merry-go-round. You're having to run Nick Easton out there. Cesar Ruiz, the rookie, now starting again because Easton's out with a concussion. Pete's been in and out of the lineup. I think that part of it also has hurt as well. And they've got to get back to running the ball, Ricky, better. I mean, they have to be better at running the ball, I think, because this team, the way they're built, in a lot of ways, it's almost like the old Dome Patrol Jim Morris Saints. I mean, they're built on defense, special teams. Those teams had Morton Anderson, really good kicker, they good punter. This team is kind of built that way. They're going to be ball control and offense, got to run the ball.
This is Jeff Duncan from The Athletic. We'll continue the conversation after this break.
Listen to Ole Miss football on SuperTalk 103.1.
Be sure to go by this station's website and check out the half-off deals. Audubon Zoo tickets for just $15. That's half price. $30 zoo tickets for just $15. Again, go to this station's website or Facebook. Look for the half-off deals logo to purchase yours now.
Heart attacks and strokes don't stay home. So don't avoid the ER out of anxiety. Don't die of doubt. If you have an emergency, call 911. When seconds count, the hospital is the safest place to be.
Hey, I'm Steve Azar, and you never know who or what you'll hear when I spend a Mississippi Minute with my friends. Talking to Paul Thorne, Mississippi true treasure, really incredible recording artist, singer, songwriter. Has been doing it a long time, doing it the right way.
It's almost like a Forrest Gump thing because I was a boxer, / I worked in a furniture factory, / I had a gig 2 nights a week playing my acoustic guitar in a pizza restaurant, / I was in the National Guard, and all this stuff was going on at the same time. / I had a writing contract with Rick Hall and Fame.
In a Mississippi Minute. Be sure to check out In a Mississippi Minute with me, Steve Azar, right here on SuperTalk Mississippi, the SuperTalk Mississippi app, and now available on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher.
There's a place to share gossip about the office party fun, and a place to share the story you tell everyone. There's a place to share a laugh about when things went wrong, and a place to share the video of you dancing to your song. There's a place to share spare change, lunch, and your time. But we could all be better at sharing how we're feeling inside. 76% of employees have struggled with at least one issue that affected their mental health. When you share, you're not alone.
Feeling down? Here's your prescription for a daily dose of good news and positive vibes. Good Things with Rebecca Turner. Every afternoon, Rebecca highlights all the good things happening right here in the state you call home. Daily exposure to Good Things with Rebecca Turner may cause smiling, feelings of positivity, happiness, and even laughter. When you experience these symptoms, tell your friends to listen.
Okay.
Weekdays starting at 2 p.m. here on SuperTalk Mississippi and now on Amazon Alexa devices.
This is House Call for Health. There may be no greater medical mystery and no greater tragedy than sudden infant death syndrome. It used to be known as crib death. For no apparent reason, a presumably healthy sleeping baby dies. Medical experts don't have clear-cut answers to what causes sudden infant death, or SIDS, but now they have 2 risk factors: smoking and drinking during pregnancy beyond the first 3 months. A new study finds that babies whose mothers drank alcohol and smoked tobacco after after the first trimester are at far greater risk of SIDS, 12 times greater. Previous studies showed a risk of smoking and drinking individually. This study says doing both drastically increases the danger. The research is sponsored by the National Institutes of Health, which is calling for greater publicity about the danger and improved screening at the very beginning of a pregnancy. For more health news, go to foxnewshealth.com. House Call for Health. I'm Lisa Brady, Fox News.
You could be spreading the coronavirus without realizing you have it, so do your part and stay home. It's important to limit in-person interaction with anyone outside of your immediate household, but phone and video chat are safe ways to connect. It's also important to limit social gatherings. If you need essential items like food and medicine, try using a delivery service. If you must leave your house for essential items, or if you want to take a walk for exercise, make sure to wear a cloth face covering. Stay at least 6 feet away from other people. Try not to frequently touch surfaces like light signals, street signs, or benches. And wash your hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds as often as possible. This advice applies to people of any age, including teens and younger adults. It takes all of us to slow the spread of the coronavirus, so stay home unless absolutely necessary. Visit coronavirus.gov for the latest information.
Whether you're a Rebel, a Bulldog, a Golden Eagle, or just a sports fan, SuperTalk Mississippi has got a podcast for you. For you. Sports Talk Mississippi, The Rebel Report, Thunder and Lightning, the SuperTalk Eagle Hour, and The Borky Show are all now available for you. And it's all free. Get them all on demand at supertalk.fm and on your smartphone. Just search for SuperTalk on iTunes, Google Play, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. He's the former president and publisher of the Sun Herald, and now he's on the radio. Welcome to Coast Vue with Ricky Mathews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast Vue. It's Saints Wednesday. We usually have Saints Friday, but we have Jeff Duncan from The Athletic with us because of the holidays and the Saints game on Friday. We're doing the show today, and as usual, I enjoy my conversation with Jeff. Hey, Jeff, when I heard that Jameis Winston had COVID, it scared me to death. I thought, I know they do all the contact tracing, and the Saints have generally had good results as it relates to COVID. But the first thing you could think about is, oh, my goodness, he was in the quarterback room. What do you know about that?
Well, it forced them to scramble a little bit. They had to do some quick contact tracing on Drew Brees and Taysom Hill and the quarterback's coach, Joe Lombardi. All those quick turnaround tests came back negative. So I think it was a big relief for the Saints because they could have been in a situation very similar to what happened with the Broncos where you wouldn't have a quarterback. But none of the test results came back positive. So they were able to use the quarterbacks. And that's the world we're in right now, Ricky, with this, unprecedented situation. And the timing of it was what was so difficult for the Saints. If Winston would have tested positive early in the week, they would have had an ability to plan around it or maybe bring in another quarterback. But it happened at such a late juncture, they were kind of forced to go with just two in that game.
So, you talked about that a little bit at the beginning of the game, beginning of the show. But the reality was they weren't able to use Taysom Hill the way they normally use Taysom. So not only did you have a situation where Drew Brees was not playing 100%, but you're not able to use Taysom the way you normally do. And then you didn't have, your whole receivers core was decimated. This was not a we didn't have the full, group of players to show what we could do against this team. And hopefully we get an opportunity to do that again.
Well, look, eventually Mike Thomas is going to come back. They put him on IR. His high ankle sprain was just lingering and was not getting better with him playing every week. So I think what's going on right now, Ricky, is really smart. The Saints' goal is to win the Super Bowl. It's not to finish with the best record in the regular season. It's not to win the division. They're going to win this division. It's to try and win the whole thing. They know this is probably Drew Brees' last go-round. They're all in. There's going to be probably a big transition on the roster after this season. So let's try and win a Super Bowl. That has to be the mindset. And to do that, they have to have a healthy Mike Thomas. And almost every move they've been making lately has been basically designed to try and be at full strength for the playoffs. And they can win a Super Bowl with that receiving core at full strength, but they got to get Deontay Harris back. They've got to get Marquez Callaway back and Mike Thomas and Patrick Robinson at cornerback as well. All these guys are on IR right now, but they'll be back. And that's the good thing. We've talked about it on the show in the past. The Saints haven't lost really anybody key in their 2 deep depth chart for the rest of the season. That's amazing at this late juncture that they haven't lost anybody yet to a season-ending injury.
It is amazing. So before we get back to what we learned from the Kansas City game and what we had to look forward to in the next 2 games, let's talk just generally about how are the playoffs shaping up and where do the Saints fit in and so on.
Well, right now they're still the number 2 seed in the NFC. They're a game back of Green Bay in the loss column, and it really in effect is 2 games back because they lost to the Packers in week 3, I think it was. So they lose the head-to-head. But here's the wrinkle that I think everyone should be aware of. It's a different tiebreaker system if you get into a 3-way tie than it is if you're in a 2-way tie. The head-to-head, the first tiebreaker in a 2-way tie is, did you play the other team? Who won the game? And in that case, if the Saints get in it with Green Bay, they're going to lose out in a 2-way tiebreaker because they lost to the Packers. What you need to root for is for Seattle to continue to win, for Green Bay to lose their last game of the year against the Chicago Bears. They have to lose that NFC game. And it could happen. The Bears are playing much better, and they're still alive in the playoff race, amazingly. So this could happen, Ricky, where you end up with Green Bay, New Orleans if they win out, Seattle if they win out, Green Bay loses 1 game, everyone will end up 12-4. Then it becomes a 3-way tiebreaker, and the Saints would win that in a 3-way tiebreaker because their NFC record would be the best of the 3 teams in that group, provided the Bears beat the Packers the last game of the year.
Wow, that's interesting. I think I read that. I'd forgotten that it's not so far-fetched. It's not just about Saints have to win the next 2 games and Green Bay's got to lose the next 2 games for the Saints to get in there. But under that scenario, that's you can actually see that, which means the Saints have to win the next 2 games.
Right. Saints have to win out, and I think they will. I think they're going to make quick work of this Minnesota Vikings team. I know everyone's thinking, oh, this team's had the Saints number. They've eliminated them 2 of the last 3 years. This isn't the same Vikings team coming into the Dome that beat them in the playoffs last year. They're in a full-blown transition, Ricky. They're actually treading water pretty well at 6. I think they're what are they right now? 6-8. So they're managing to stay competitive. But this is a team that a year ago had Everson Griffin, Xavier Rhodes, Daniil Hunter on that defense. I mean, they were stingy. None of those guys are going to be playing Sunday. They've moved on from Rhodes and Griffin. Daniil Hunter's on injured reserve. They can't rush the passer. That's critical if you're going to try and contain the Saints. And then offensively, they're built around Dalvin Cook, who's a great running back, but that's the teeth of the strength of the Saints defense, stopping the run. I don't see how they're going to run the ball on the Saints. So it's going to come down to can Kirk Cousins make something happen with his arm. Now, he can do it if he has time. I don't think he's going to have time against the Saints pass rush. They gave Kansas City fits. I think they're really going to get after Minnesota up front. I think this is going to be an easy win and a nice Christmas gift for all Saints fans.
And what about the last game? What are you thinking about as we get close to that last game?
Well, I mean, the Panthers, I think, are playing out the string. They just fired their general manager, Marty Herney. They're in transition as well, with first-year coach Matt Rule. So I can't see the Saints losing either game. And then Seattle, their remaining games, they get San Francisco at home this week, which is a big game for them. San Francisco's kind of had their number, but San Francisco is not the same team that they were earlier this year. They've been decimated by injuries. And then Seattle, in their last game of the year, they have the Rams this week at home. Then they play San Francisco. So they get the Rams in Seattle. Rams obviously going to be a little salty after losing to the Jets, which was unbelievable. That's a critical game. Saints fans need to root for Seattle to win that game because I think they go to San Francisco and win that last game. I think this scenario could play out, but I really don't think any of this, all this talk, is that important in this unprecedented season where you're going to have no really home field advantage. It's played out this year. Look at the numbers I think the road teams this year had the highest winning percentage they've ever had in the NFL. That's because there's no home field advantage. There's no fans in the stands. So I think even if the Saints were to have to go to Seattle or go to Green Bay in the playoffs, they're going to be fine. They've proven that they can win on the road. They're built to win on the road with their running game and their defense and special teams. So I don't think it's the end-all be-all if they don't get the number one seed at all.
It's such a weird scenario where, when you combine the fact that there isn't a real home field advantage in the Dome. Let's face it, the Dome is a home field advantage, one of the best in the NFL. When you combine that with how many players are out right now and what's got to come back to the team, it's almost as if we'll be coming back full strength just as the playoffs start. And man, their preparation for that first game is going to be critical, isn't it?
Yeah, and I really think it comes down to matchups. Last year was not a good matchup with that Minnesota team and Mike Zimmer. This year, I think the only kryptonite for the Saints, and we've seen it the last couple of weeks, because their defense is so good this year, they're so good at all three levels, really the kryptonite for them is a mobile quarterback who can make things happen when the play breaks down. He can extend the play. We saw that time and again from Patrick Mahomes, where the Saints played great defense for the first 3 seconds of the play, but he extended it to 4 seconds and somebody broke open and he was able to throw sidearm across the field. I mean, the guy's an amazing talent. And we saw that a little bit with Jalen Hurts with Philadelphia, who came back last week and played great against Arizona. We see that his performance against the Saints was not an outlier. He's going to be a terrific young talent. And so I think there would be a little bit of concern that you get in against maybe an Arizona with Kyler Murray, obviously Seattle with Russell Wilson. Those kind of quarterbacks could give the Saints problems by extending plays, because the Saints are so good rushing the passer, Ricky. They're going to get after anybody and dominate up front. But if a guy can get outside the pocket and scramble around, eventually somebody's going to come open, or they can run and scramble for big gains like we saw Mahomes and Hurts do. So that's the only concern I have going forward in the NFC. I think the best team in football is clearly the Chiefs. I was on the Steelers train for a while. They are a complete dumpster fire right now. I don't think they can get it back together in time. So I really think you're going to see the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. I'll be shocked if they're not there.
So interesting. Yeah, I mean, Kansas City's probably going to be in the Super Bowl, and it would be so cool if we could have all of our horses there, and that would be a really good game. We saw that it could be a really good game. Anyway, when we come back, I want to talk a little bit more about the lack of home field advantage and what we might be able to do to compensate for that. But maybe there's nothing. But we'll come back to that in just a second. This is Jeff Duncan from The Athletic, and it's Saints Wednesday this week. See you after this break.
Coast Vue on SuperTalk 103.1 is brought to you by Allen Toyota on I-10 exit 38 Gulfport. See all of the incredible inventory at allentoyota.com. And remember, when you think Toyota, think Allen Toyota.
106.3 Casino Radio is here. Tune to 106.3 to discover all of our must-see attractions and everything that's happening at our 12 incredible casino resorts. Where to eat, where to stay, what to do, and where to play. 106.3 Casino Radio has you covered with everything you need to know to help make your visit here to the coast one you'll never forget. Turn on 106.3 Casino Radio or listen now on our website, CasinoRadio1063.com.
The Lars Larson Show. On the left, they say that this president has divided America. No, the opposition, the resistance to Donald Trump is what has divided America, because Donald Trump said he would work with both sides, and he's shown that he would. But the Democrats, because they want to take a position that everything about Donald Trump is wrong, to a large extent, they have refused to work with him on anything.
The Lars Larson Show, weeknights at 6 on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Hey, I'm Steve Azar, and you never know who or what you'll hear when I spend a Mississippi Minute with my friends. We are with the fabulous Norbert Putnam, as he played on so many hit records, you can't count them, and produced for some of the biggest acts ever. Norbert, Elvis.
And I want to tell you about Presley. He had two different voices. He would sit and talk to me in a very calm, low voice. And we were at Stack's one night, and we were having lunch. We always had lunch at midnight because he was nocturnal. We sat there and we have our sandwiches, and at 1 o'clock, he looked up. He said, "Hey, Pot, come on, it's time for me to go beat Elvis." And he stood up, and a much deeper voice, he put on his macho voice. "Hey, fellas, it's 1 o'clock. Let's get cracking, okay?"
In a Mississippi Minute. Be sure to check out In a Mississippi Minute with me, Steve Azar, right here on SuperTalk Mississippi, Amazon Alexa, and now on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher.
Hey, want to come work for the #1 radio group on the coast? TeleSouth Media has a great opportunity for an outside sales consultant. Get paid while having fun and work in the exciting, fast-paced world of radio. We have award-winning stations like 97.9 CPR Rocks, 105.9 The Monkey, G96.7, SuperTalk 103.1, and 103.5 The Possum. Take the first step towards a new and rewarding career. Submit your resume to Jesse at telesouth.com. That's JESSE at telesouth.com. TeleSouth Media is an equal employment opportunity employer.
What would happen if I had to pick up the phone, call 911 for one of my family members or one of my neighbors? What would I do if no one was on the other end to respond? What if there was no 911? So you can be a part of the solution.
Anybody can be a firefighter. Male, female, younger, older.
We have school teachers. We have leaders in business.
Is me, you, anyone that wants to be. There is no typical firefighter.
SuperTalk Mississippi, your new home for the Ben Shapiro Show.
We don't hold back. We never shy away from telling you the truth.
The most electrifying national talk show on air today.
We have the most important guests and the biggest thinkers in America.
Ben Shapiro, brutally breaking down the issues of the day.
From politics to pop culture, we take a look at all of it. So don't miss out.
Weeknights at 9.
For something new and unique in talk radio, take a listen to The Ben Shapiro Show.
On SuperTalk Mississippi. When you listen to SuperTalk Mississippi, you become part of a statewide community, a community of knowledgeable, engaged, enlightened, well-informed, hard-working men and women just like you, all eager to see the Magnolia State grow and prosper. There may be some disagreement on how to get there, but the goal remains the same, for each Mississippian to reach their American dream. Thanks for listening and being a part of the conversation on SuperTalk Mississippi. Talking to the people that help make the coast such a unique place to live. This is Coast Vue with Ricky Mathews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast View. This is Saints Wednesday. We have Jeff Duncan from The Athletic, and we're going to talk about home field advantage now. And I want to bring Kyle into the conversation. Kyle Curley, as most of our listeners, regular listeners know, Kyle is the guy who does the music at the Superdome during Saints games. And I want to tell you all both a quick story. This won't take a second. But when I was doing training to become publisher at the Sun Herald, I spent a month in St. Paul, Minnesota. So it's right there next to Minneapolis. And, of course, they cover the Minneapolis team, of course. And I went to a game. And this is when they were not controlling the decibel levels of the music, and they had the speakers behind the team that was visiting. And dude, it was really loud. I mean, I was on the field for the game, and I had earplugs in my ears, and it was still loud. I've never heard anything like that before. Incidentally, I met Doug Flutie after the game, and he was shorter than I am. And Randy Moss caught a touchdown pass in that game, and I was standing in the end zone when that touchdown pass was caught. And underneath his armpit in the picture, you could see me standing there on the front page of the paper catching this pass to win the game. Watching Randy Moss, incidentally, what a talent he was. But for the days of turning the music up all the way are gone, aren't they, Kyle?
Well, no, not really. We can turn the music all the way up now.
You can, so there's not a decibel requirement?
Not for music with fans. No, the curated fan noise has to be at a certain dB level, but music afterwards can be as high as we want it to be.
Okay, but here's the issue, and Jeff, you can chime in here. Home field advantage comes when the opposing team has 3rd and 5, and the fans turn it up and make it impossible for him to be able to communicate with his team. So how do we overcome that?
Kyle and them do a great job of it, playing that music between snaps. So there is I think there's a cutoff period. You probably know, Kyle, like they have to cut the music off, but between snaps, when the opposing team is in the huddle trying to get their play call out to the other players, they can have the music playing, and it's usually way up there as loud as it can go.
Yeah, our rule of thumb is, well, the league rule is you have to stop playing music at 20 on the play clock. And what we noticed that was really apparent against the Chiefs was Mahomes didn't even get in the huddle until after 20 on the clock. So when the music's died down, that's when he actually goes in the huddle. And I'm starting to see that, notice that around the league with a lot of these teams after they've come through the Superdome. Not saying that we've started a trend, but it seems like quarterbacks are not convening huddles until after 20 on the clock.
Kyle is a national trendsetter. Listen to that. Listen to that. He's affected the course of history of the NFL in the pandemic. What about that, Jeff?
Well, no, look, I understand it because it's a huge advantage, and I know Sean Payton thinks about these things, and it is part of his plan for home games. Every detail that they can use to try and gain a little smidgen of advantage, he's going to try and exploit, including the crowd noise. And if you watch, sometimes Sean Payton will be on the sidelines, gesturing to the crowd, what 3,000 fans in there to get as loud as they can, because he understands that can make a difference in the game.
There's reasons that volume level goes to 11.
Hey, so listen, can a fan bring a megaphone in?
I don't know that. I don't think so.
Sure.
Well, somebody should have just bought a bunch of megaphones and handed them out to the 3,000 fans.
I think after the World Cup year where everyone was bringing the vuvuzelas in, I think a lot of these stadiums put rules against bringing stuff like that in.
Yeah, I'm sure they thought of every possible angle to try to make, 3,000 or whatever the number is sound like, 60 plus. But anyway, so let's come back. Thanks, Kyle. And it's cool to have Kyle, the guy with the music at the Dome, and Jeff Duncan, been covering the Saints longer than anyone else out in the history, together and talk about something like home field advantage. What an advantage Coast Vue has in that regard. So anyway, Cam Jordan swung his fist. But when you go back and look at that play, that guy was hanging on to him. I bet he was hanging on to him in every play. And finally, Cam just snapped. But that's what the guy wanted, isn't it?
Yeah, Cam just got frustrated. And that was really uncharacteristic of him, a veteran player that's, look, he gets held every game. So, I think he let his frustrations boil over in that moment, which is understandable. I mean, you're chasing around Patrick Mahomes. There were so many times where it looked like Cam had a bead on Patrick Mahomes and he avoided him. And he can't let that happen. I mean, he apologized on social media right after the game. And I think it was notable that when Sean Payton was asked about the incident afterward, he said, I saw exactly what the officials saw. We can't let that happen. He did not defend his veteran defensive end. And I don't expect to see anything like that going forward. The Chiefs, you and I talked about it in the break, they're very savvy in how they get away with holding. The officiating crew in that game, Scott Novak and his crew, they allowed those guys to get away with a lot of holding. Matter of fact, the whole league all year long has kind of let them get away with those kind of plays.
Well, Jeff, we're coming to the end of our time together, but listen, as usual, I really appreciate your incredible insight, and I know the listeners appreciate it too. And we'll see. We're going to have a break between Christmas and New Year's, and hopefully when we come back with you, we will have won 2 games, and we'll be thinking about the playoffs, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, I think you're definitely going to see the Saints at 12-4, which, by the way, Ricky, was what I predicted at the beginning of the season.
Good for you. Good for you. And Drew Brees headed toward the dream season to the Super Bowl on his final year. Anyway, buddy, take care and have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
You too, Ricky. Thanks for having me on, buddy. And to everyone out there listening, happy holidays.
Yeah, you bet, buddy. Take care.